reinstatement Wednesday, 2 days after the former Pro Bowler met with the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell at the league office in New York. Here's Cleveland's statement. Or actually, we won't go to the statement because we read it earlier in the show. We'd like to bring in at this moment Teddy Bruschi here, football analyst, to give us your thoughts on the reinstatement of Myles Garrett. It's been a really emotional morning here and a lot of different takes on how the suspension should have been handled. What do you think?
I think if I'm Myles Garrett, I'm thanking my lucky stars that it only ended up being a 6-game suspension. I look at it and I was thinking 8 games. I didn't think any type of full season bans or elimination from the league, anything like that. That was an overreaction, but I thought this might have been an 8-game suspension. So I would have said add 2 on top of it. And then, you know, the word indefinite is strong. I know he's had to live with that for a little while, but did this suspension depend on when it happened during the season? If this was week 6, would he have played again last season, and would it have been 10? You know, or week 8, it would have been 8. You know, but you got to establish some type of consistency if this happens again. And it's an emotional game, and I understand what happened to Myles Garrett and how he went crazy and how he's in a situation where you got a helmet and you lose control and you swing it. It can happen again is what I'm trying to say. So when it does happen again, you know, you've got this to look back on it. And in totality, all it's been for Myles Garrett is a 6-game suspension when I think a standard of 8 for people to look at would have been better for the league moving forward.
That's actually the best argument I've heard, is that you're being sensitive to the fact that someone can lose impulse control in a moment, because when they're angry, if the other guy's helmet is off, especially if the other guy is pursuing them, you don't think about what you just want to get them. So because it may happen again, a stiffer suspension is important because you need this as a reference point. The league needs to be able to point back to it. Look, we did what we could. But, Teddy, my basic point of view is he wasn't hurt by the swinging of the helmet, whatever may have happened. Mason Rudolph started the fight, escalated the fight by grabbing the helmet, got his helmet taken away instead, and he didn't have to chase Myles Garrett, who was being restrained by 2 of his teammates. If he was 10 yards away, Garrett could have done this all he wanted, wasn't going to hit anything. So it's like everyone is focusing on bad Myles Garrett, and he lost control. He deserves a suspension, but it feels out of proportion to me.
And the NFL is all about images, Max. It's about what we saw, what the youth of America saw, what the fans saw, and the image of that swing is basically what they're talking about here. They're not talking about what happened, because all it is, you know, it's a fight and things escalate. And to a point, you are correct, Max, absolutely. But the swinging of the helmet is something and an image that must be dealt with seriously.
At a helmetless player, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Teddy, what are your thoughts about my position that, you know, I suppose you said 8 games. I'm thinking 7, just the season opener, only for the sole express purpose of using it as a reminder. We did not forget what happened last year. We want you all to remember what happened this year, because if you do it, the penalty will be even more severe. I think that's the kind of impetus that needs to be, or the motivation that needs to be behind the decision to make a suspension go into next season, because the Browns didn't make the playoffs. Out of the mind's eye, we've been celebrating football. We come back and you on the field like nothing happened. No, I don't think that's the right message to send.
I agree with you, because what the point is now, with that, you say 7, 8, okay, just make it 7. I'm with you there, just so there's a little bit of a reminder to the players that this can happen again. Sure, because now that there's a reminder to the players where if I go to the commissioner and show contrition, you know, things can be better. You know, because you have a meeting with the commissioner, you know, you express remorse, you do all the right things, and the commissioner will be lenient, rather than knowing if you do that, this is what's going to happen. So this opens up inconsistencies, which is something that there have been a lot of debates about with the NFL and how they've handled things in the past. And now it's just another example to where something like this happens again, and then now it's all about debate. Is it about 6 games? What does indefinite truly mean? Does it mean you finish the season and then you have a meeting? Or maybe if it's a few games, it's 6 games, then I go to the commissioner and tell him how sorry I am, and he lets me back in the league.
People acting like 6 games is not a lot. 6 games is a huge
It's a big
percentage
part of the
the
salary,
season.
yes.
I know
yes.
You say 8 because it's half
but it was
the season.
last season.
Stephen,
But it was
as I
last
said, I
season.
think you have an interesting idea there. Mainly, your point is that it'll remind people when the season starts. Remember what happened? That's a good point. And also, he would have been suspended for the playoffs. They didn't make the playoffs. So you could argue that he kind of got off a little lighter in a sense because he didn't have to miss those games, though you're not paid the same for those games.
That's true.
I understand the point. I thought 6 games was plenty in this case.
Guys, let's shift our focus to another football conversation, this time in Dallas. Interestingly enough, despite all the chatter, Dak Prescott is still without a new contract. Michael Irvin created a lot of noise telling WEEI that the Cowboys could pursue Tom Brady before walking it back. And now Irving tells the Fort Worth Star-Telegram the Cowboys would be insane to replace Dak with Brady. So, Stephen A., start with you. If the Cowboys were to move on from Dak Prescott, who would be the best option to replace him?
Tom Brady. That's what I would say. Now, let me be very, very clear about where I'm going with this. I believe the Dallas Cowboys should take care of Dak Prescott. I think they should pay him. I think they should give him a long-term deal. I don't think he deserves to be franchised. 4 years, never has missed a start, has been a model of consistency in terms of being a leader, being available, being reliable, being trustworthy. He's only failed to complete less than 65% of his passes in 1 of the 4 seasons. He's taken them to the postseason twice. This dude, as far as I'm concerned, has proven that he deserves a long-term deal from the Dallas Cowboys. They should take care of him. Having said all of that, if we want to engage in hypotheticals here and imagine life without Dak Prescott, I'm taking one season at a time if I'm Dallas. Why? Because Jerry Jones. That's why he's 77 years old. If I remember correctly, my buddy, Jerry Jones, 77 years of age. He has already acknowledged his own mortality. Time is running out. The priority is to get yourself a Super Bowl, not to build for the long term, 4, 5, 6 years down the road. Tomorrow is not guaranteed to this man. He said it, I did it. And if I'm looking at it from that perspective, a 6-time champion, even at age 42, why does that matter? I already got a number 1 in Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup is no scrub. Last time I checked, Ezekiel Elliott is an elite running back in the sport of football. The offensive line is considered elite or pretty damn close to it because I think they've scaled off a little bit in the past couple of years. The bottom line is that you're talking about an experienced quarterback who knows how to minimize mistakes. At age 42, we call it a bad year, 24 touchdowns, just 8 interceptions, completed 60% of his passes. We know he could do better, but still passed for 4,000 yards with being bereft of weapons with the New England Patriots because Bill Belichick didn't get him enough help. I'd say Tom Brady for 1 year. Doesn't bother me at all.
I have a different answer. Now, look, if you don't pay Dak Prescott, I understand why. It's the same reason you probably shouldn't have paid Jared Goff. It's the same reason I'm down on Carson Wentz. Not that Carson Wentz isn't potentially a top 5 quarterback, but he didn't play it like it this year. He did not play like, and when you pay a quarterback just because he's the next man up, as though he's a top 5 player and he doesn't perform, you wind up in trouble. So if that's what they're saying about Dak, we think maybe you could be a top 5 quarterback one day, but today's not the day. You're not there yet. And they truly moved on from him. I'll give you a guy who, when he was given a chance, was ascending. A 50 QBR means you're an average quarterback. His first year, he's almost 55. His second year, he was almost 58, and then he got hurt. But last year, he was almost 50. Remember, he was ascending up towards, but he's shown throughout his career he's at minimum a solid starting quarterback, if not a franchise quarterback. He had 9 touchdowns against 2 interceptions this year. He was 5-0, and his name is Teddy Bridgewater. Ooh. Bridgewater is a guy who, for some reason, the league overlooks. Bridgewater is, listen, we spoke to Coach. We know that they're thinking about Taysom Hill and Drew Brees. They can't afford everybody. If you don't think your guy is elite and you don't want to overpay for a quarterback, but you want a bona fide NFL starter, a guy who's now, 22-12 as a starting quarterback in his career. And you might say, well, yeah, he's just asked not to lose the game, game manage this and that. Well, the Cowboys maybe only need a guy like that to win. He went 5-0 last year. If you don't want to pay a guy who's not truly elite as though he's elite, if you want to pay a mid-market price for, by the way, a guy who may still be ascending, a guy who's at least a starter, but really has shown maybe he's a franchise guy, Teddy Bridgewater, who's going to be 28 years old next year.
Yeah, okay, so, I mean, if you're talking worst-case scenario for the Dallas Cowboys, it would be you lose Dak Prescott and he's no longer there. And, Stephen A., I hear what you're saying with Brady and Teddy Bridgewater. You got an offensive line like that. Phillip Rivers just said he still wants to play. He's out of Los Angeles.
Cho hồ nước đầy là mặt gương soi non xanh mà nước biếc ôi quan nhạt mái chèo là quan nhạt mái chèo ôi nhìn bằng chiều in ngân nước ta nhìn đất trời một dòng nghiêng